Hi, you've tuned in to Radio Northern Beaches, your Listen Local station, right here on the Northern Beaches of Sydney. You can find us on your radio dial at 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Can't get to a radio? No worries. You can always stream our program live from anywhere in the world at rnb.org.au. And for listening on your own schedule, our podcasts are available globally at rnbpodcast.com.au. So be sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Now, here is our latest podcast.
From little things.
Join Mon and Mazz for Grit Diaries, where we share inspiring stories from grit to grace. We hear from incredible people and their stories of resilience, determination, and growth. Everybody has a story. Here is your place to be inspired. Learn how you can look at your own story from new perspectives and be uplifted from new insights. From little things, big things grow.
Welcome to the Grit Diaries, From Grit to Grace with Mon and Mazz, the show where we dive deeply into the stories of resilience, of courage, and the journey from struggle to triumph. My name is Mazz, and each week we sit down with extraordinary people who have faced life's toughest challenges and really only to emerge stronger and wiser. From personal setbacks to profound comebacks, these are the stories that remind us all of the power within. Whether you're looking for a spark of hope, a dose of motivation, or a reminder that you're not alone, you've come to the right place. This is the Grit Diaries, From Grit to Grace. Let's get inspired. Today, we are thrilled to have an amazing guest with us. I'm sure that you will all recognize this beautiful lady. She is an author. She has just clocked up her 30th book. She is a well-known icon around Australia and around the world. She's had a career that's traversed TV, radio, writing, amongst no doubt 1,000 other things, and it is none other than Di Morrissey. Welcome to Radio Northern Beaches, Di.
Oh, this is fantastic to be here, girls. This is great. Yeah.
I know. I feel like we're all just hanging out together, and we've had a wonderful conversation.
I've already told you all my good stories.
I know.
I know.
Home now? No.
Okay.
No, you can't. Okay. We locked the door. And so Di has actually, you've just written and launched your new book, which we will dive into. Can you just share with us the name of the book and just give us a bit of a headline?
Well, the headline is that it's my 30th novel in 33 years.
Wow.
So I had a year off when my mum died and COVID messed up 2 other years. But I have always wanted to write since I was a little girl, but, life gets in the way. So once I started, I was fulfilling my passion. So doing a book for Pam Macmillan every year is pretty thrilling. And so here I am launching the new one.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, we're really going to look forward to hearing more about your book, River Song. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to start with, if we can, you mentioned just now, that we have lots of women listening in and men, and we talk about, being able to, having a career as a woman sometimes is a challenge if you've got children, you've got other responsibilities. But you talked about, having a passion. And this began when you were young. And do I understand it correctly that when you were little you would talk stories or you would write stories? And was it your grandmother that noticed?
No, though she was very grandmotherly. Although I'm now living on the mid-north coast of New South Wales where I'm born, I've gone that full circle back to my roots, kind of inadvertently. But the heart of my whole life is Pittwater. And there's a long story with my mother in the war, and the man I thought was my father was a Changi POW, so he was kind of a bit difficult. But we lived at Lovett Bay, and over then there were just a few weekenders there. So there were very few, full-time people. But amongst the community there was Chips Rafferty across the bay. I used to go over and help him anti-foul his boats. And then down the bottom was what my mother would say, where the witch lived, and you are not to go down there. So of course I would go down there. Anyway, she called me in the garden one day and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking for fairies." And she said, "Oh, what a splendid idea. I'll help you look." And we didn't find fairies that time, but she took me inside her house, and there were a wall of books. I had never seen so many books in her life. And I said, "I love books, but I only get birthdays and Christmas, so I have to make up my own stories in my head." So she looked at me very firmly and she said, "My dear, so when you grow up, you should put your stories in a book one day for other people to enjoy, just like I did. In fact, I'll tell you one of mine." And she stood up and said, "I wrote this. I love a sunburnt country, a land of Dorothea."
Dorothea. No.
Yeah. So I went home and said to my mother that I had met Miss McKellar, and Mum said, and I said, "So I'm going to write books one day." And Mum said, "That's lovely, darling, peel the peas."
And do you remember that scene?
Oh, yes. I mean, she made a massive impression on me. And Chips was my godfather, so he talked to me about Australian stories, and whatever you do in life, kid, you make it Australian. So that is why my books are Australian stories. And I think the first book when it came out was... there hadn't been a big Australian book since like Thornbirds.
Yeah.
So the timing in life is really everything. And when I had been working in television, and I became friends with R.M. Williams, and I did a story on him when he went out to do this week-long trip on the endurance horse ride to build funding for the Stockman's Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So that was where, and that stuck in my mind, the people and the places. And I had gone overseas and I'd never seen my own country, so that's why I thought it was as important. I remember what Chip said, that my books are all quintessentially Australian.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's speaks to really, because you could have dismissed that as a childhood memory, but yet those people, and really important people that were placed in your life, that became the seed, that memory for then later in life then developing and starting to write.
No, I quite assumed then, because when I look back now, there was also George Farwell who wrote books. There were all of these. There was George English, the musician. There were all of these people doing extraordinary things, but I thought everybody did things like that. So to me, to say that I wanted to make movies and write books, and that seemed to me quite a normal thing, but other people would look at me and say, "What a pretentious little girl, where did she get those ideas?"
So you were surrounded by really interesting people growing up.
And then my life changed because my father had started a little water taxi service down at Pittwater, and my mother I was nearly 10, and she now had I had a baby brother who was 18 months old, and one day my mother got the school bus into Mona Vale to meet me after I came down out of Mona Vale Primary School to get the bus home, and when we got to Church Point, there was just all of this commotion and lights. And I remember sitting on the top of the school bus when an ambulance went past, and you used to hold a button for luck. Remember that?
Yes.
And then when there was just all of this chaos, and my mother started screaming, and both of them had drowned. The baby fell overboard and my father jumped in. It was winter, and stuff. So from that idyllic, really amazing existence, our whole life changed
in an instant.
Wow. So was
that your only sibling die?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But now as a mother and a wife, you think, how did my mother cope with that? To lose her beloved husband who'd gone to the war and come back, and they were trying to start. And apparently, she'd been married before, and so because and he came back from the war who was actually my biological father, which I never knew until I was in my 20s. Wow. But anyway, he had disappeared, so my mother couldn't get a divorce for 7 years. So there was the falling out with my grandfather because she's living in sin with Bill Roberts. And it was just like, I just don't know how I would cope. She'd never worked in her life. She drove a truck or something for the Red Cross at the war. Anyway, Chips Rafferty took up a fund for us, and we sailed to California to be with Mum's sister. And Chips said to Mum, now there's this new thing happening called television, so while you're in Los Angeles, go and do a course about it, get in there. So my mother came back, and she ended up becoming, there's new studios at French's Forest at the Blinking Like our Transit Film Studios that just opened. She walked in there, she started as a script assistant, a continuity girl. She became our first woman commercial television director. So looking at my mother, it didn't occur to me that you can't do anything that you don't put your mind to, or you really want. Yeah.
Even on the back end of such
tragedy.
Adversity, just, that could really sort of catapult your life in a completely different direction, but yet she's actually, traversed.
So for me, out of that she's a role model. She was very... I think she was still emotionally unstable in many ways. She was fantastic professional, but at home I saw that fragile side of her. But I just assumed then that women can do anything they want. And that was before that was very acceptable. We still struggle. And with no money, very humble origins. But it never occurred to me that I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Amazing. Yeah. And so how do you feel that influenced you as you did you start, where did your journey, your career start?
Well, I still, as I learned, you don't leave school and become a novelist. And I left school at 15 because Mum couldn't afford to send me to university. So Mum's brother was an ABC foreign correspondent. He said, you need to do journalism. He marched me into the Woman's Weekly, and I got a job as a copy girl.
So can I ask, why did he see something in you to say that you need to be in journalism?
Oh, they all knew. Because I said I want to write books, and and I told stories. We were a family of storytellers, a family of readers. My grandfather had come out from England, and the main stuff he bought were all his father's books. So I now have my grandfather's books, which will, go down in the family, just the old classics. And so it was obvious that we all had storytelling and writing in our background. So, and journalism teaches you discipline and how to find out stuff, and don't use pretentious long words. People have to go away and look in the dictionary. Keep it short, simple, accessible. So that was all really wonderful training, because you might notice now a lot of successful authors are all former journalists. It's very common now, whereas this was, I think every journalist had a half-written novel in their top drawer, but very few ever brought it to fruition. But anyway, there I was at 15, along with Ita Buttrose. The two of us were copy girls. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
We stay friends to this day. Ita, talk about the opposite side of the tracks, and her father was, with the ABC and stuff, and so, but she knew she wanted to do journalism. There was no point in going into, there wasn't you couldn't study journalism in a university in those days, so, you went to work straight away with the printing presses and the tough editors, but the women on the Women's Weekly were the most extraordinary group of women. Ida and I still talk about them with, awe. They were just amazing. We were so lucky to have
What was it that you were in awe of? What was it about them and that time that for you felt inspiring, and it was cohesive?
They taught us a lot. They were, they all, we learned manners. We learned that how to deal with people, that you got a lot more being polite and sweet than you did kicking in the front, putting a boot in the door. And looking back now, most of them, a couple were married, but none of them had children. They were career women, and Dorothy Drain had been one of our first women war correspondents. In fact, they've just given a blue heritage thing on her home in Sydney. There's only 5, and she's one of them, acknowledging her. They were just extraordinary women that were strong. And Miss Dowse, and she'd lost her fiancé in the war early on. And at 11 o'clock every Remembrance Day, she would stand no matter where she was in the building. 11 o'clock, she stood there with her hand on her heart. They were just, and they were smart, and the Woman's Weekly was a world unto itself. Sir Frank Packer did not interfere with the Woman's Weekly. And there's something about these women. The magazine is still, our top magazine in the country. It was extraordinary to have that guidance and influence and stuff. It was wonderful.
Wow, and I think that really speaks to what you were saying before, Mon, about pioneering women and just how influential that's been, and just how important it is to have that really solid background and the backbone of women that really made an impact. And what you're illustrating is exactly that.
Yeah, and the women that in that group, I had remained friends with all of my life. They're still we're still in touch with each other. There was great respect. To look at the things you hear and read about now in workplaces, it's just inconceivable. Everybody was courteous, you dressed nicely, you spoke nicely, you were polite to people, and you were ruthless and got on with your job, but under, you as they always said, you get far more with honey. So,
yes.
I've always stuck to that.
And thank you for highlighting that. And I think that's a really important message even to be talking about, particularly as women in the workplace, and how deep roots of friendship and loyalty and respect and camaraderie as colleagues and as women and as friends, that's so important.
Equally, looking back now, I'm just thinking that we had very few men in the office. There was wonderful young Robin Adair who wrote a humorous column, and there was the director of the art department. I can't think of his name for the moment, but he was kind of across the hall, and all the artists and stuff. Our enclave, there were no men.
I think something wonderful to hear about this too, because I grew up with this mindset from my mother that don't ever trust another woman. So interesting. And when I hit about 30, after I'd had my 2 children, I remember saying to my mother, I completely disagree with your philosophy. And she said, and why is that? I said, because if I reflect running a small business and reflect on my life, it's been the women that have had my back. And if we propel this suggestion that women are their own worst enemy, we're only really setting women up for failure. And it's not a philosophy I adhere to at all. And it's so lovely to hear you talk like that, Di, about the Women's Weekly.
Yes, I hadn't thought about that.
And the camaraderie. I think the depth of friendship with women, because we do cut to the chase really close. We're quick at sharing.
We can go deep
quickly.
But I'm appalled. Yes, we had kind of disagreements and best friends and then not best friends and stuff at high school. But what is going on today with my friends' daughters and the sheer nastiness,
unkindness.
It is quite, and bullying and fighting.
Yeah.
In Taree, near where I'm living now, my hairdresser said to me that her 14-year-old daughter got into to a scrap with another girl, attacked her, fighting and scratching and rolling on the ground, and the teachers just had to stand there and do nothing because they've been forbidden to interfere. But I mean, to even get to that stage, what is going on?
Yeah.
Social media, I mean, is it all Facebook and social media? I don't know.
It's not good behaviour. And also hearing of young, beautiful girls being uninvited, like they get invited to a party and then they get uninvited. How does that happen? How can that behaviour exist? Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
And it's great then to hear, for people to be listening to, what we're talking about now, what you're kindly sharing, that bringing us back to what value we can add to each other, and that is always accessible rather than relying on, what we're seeing on social media and what people are doing.
Well, but I think it comes back to supervision and who's in charge, because the women on the Women's Weekly, you would no more have stepped out of line than life would have. It was unimaginable. Whereas here now we're looking at where the people who should be in charge are not doing anything. There's no authority. So or
Good
why
point.
is it we've got to the point where boys in classes are attacking their teachers? I mean, I don't know. Do I sound like an old lady?
I actually think it goes back to when we stopped saying Mr. and Mrs., because I still see my growing up in the street neighbours, and I still look at them in the shops and say, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so," and they say, "You don't have to say that." Or an uncle, I say, "Uncle so-and-so."
Yeah,
they go, "You don't have to call me uncle anymore. I want to call you uncle."
Auntie and uncle. The neighbours were always Auntie Glad and Uncle Al.
Yeah.
And
I still call my friends' parents Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah, but our children don't. The Generation X dropped all that, and I think it's actually caused problems because there's
little. It descales the respect. It's less respectful, I suppose. Respect is
Just that little erosion of it, just over time.
It's not that little. It's not little.
Well, not now. No. I have young children, so yeah. But let's go to our song. That one of them that you have picked, Di, and Sting. Fields of Gold. Tell me why you chose this song, Di.
Well, in my television career, I went and I was picked from Channel 10 to do the 1984 Rome Olympics, the LA Olympics. I knew nothing about sport, but they said, "Oh, well, you run around and do all of the backstories." And so then I stayed on after the Olympics and interviewed celebrities. And so anyway, I was given a day with Sting.
Stop it. Stop it.
At the Chateau Marmont. So
As you will.
Yeah, but I opened the door. I tapped on his suite, and he opened the door, and he's holding his 18-month-old baby daughter drooling, and there was his manager. There was a whole crowd in there, and everybody. Anyway, but he said, "Come on, we'll just go and sit in a corner and start to talk." And for some reason, I don't know how it came up, but I mentioned that I was a great fan of these books called the Gormenghast trilogy. They was not quite fantasy, but they're extraordinary books. And I don't know anyone that's ever read them. And he looked at me and then he shouted to his manager going, "She's one of us, she's one of us." Because he loved Gormenghast. And I said to him, "I've always thought it would make a fantastic TV series." He said, "I'm trying to do it." Anyway, years later, he did make it, but I think he was too ahead of his time and it wasn't all that successful. But however, he was just charming and funny and very warm and lots of hugs and sang. And so I just thought, well, he was a really nice fellow and an amazing talent.
Did you know you can show your support for us by becoming a friend of Radio Northern Beaches? It's easy. Just go to the website, rmb.org.au. Click Support RMB and click Become a Friend.
Thanks, Mon. And here we are. We are back with the amazing, iconic Australian author, Di Morrissey. And we just wanted to touch on what what inspired you to start beginning to write? You know, when you look back and think back to that time 30-odd years ago, 33 years ago, on your very first novel, what was...
Well, it was more than 30 years, Mazz, because, I had as I said, you don't leave school and become a novelist.
Yes.
So I became a journalist, and then, life takes over, and, I went to London because you had to prove yourself as a journalist. Once you became a D-grade journalist, you like Germaine Greer and Clive James. You have to go to London to prove that you're any good. Thank goodness that we don't have to do that anymore. So I went to London and was women's editor of the Daily Mail for 4 years. But on the ship on the way over, this old sort of creaky Italian ship with all of these lovely old ladies in black going home to die. But anyway, there was one sort of person in my age group who happened to be this tall, handsome American Peace Corps volunteer called Peter Morrissey. And so Peter and I realised we were the jet set on board. And because we broke down in the Suez Canal or somewhere for 6 weeks, it was a very long trip. So we got to know each other very well. Not that there was any hanky-panky.
Yeah.
I had five.
Glad you clarified that.
5 women in my cabin, none of whom spoke English. But anyway, I kept in touch with Peter, and then I happened to send him a postcard to say I was going back to Australia from London. I was going to stop in Singapore and see my uncle, Uncle Jim, the journalist who was our foreign correspondent there. And he said, I've been in Vietnam, so I'm flying with the information service, and I'm flying into Singapore. Can we coordinate? So we arranged to meet and have dinner. So we did. And dinner lasted 2 weeks. So I came home. It just seemed the most natural thing in the world. I'd never seen him in a suit. I didn't know if he could drive a car. There had been no dating per se, It was really,
Instant.
but we just, how Yeah. And I came home with a beautiful emerald engagement ring, and my poor mother thought, I had come home and was staying, and a couple of months later, Peter and I were married, and he was in the US diplomatic corps, but in order to be posted overseas, we had to live for 3 years in America until I became a citizen. So I lived in Hawaii for 3 years.
Wow.
So I had my own morning TV breakfast show there. I played parts in Hawaii Five-0.
Oh,
yes.
I'm going to go back and watch a few episodes.
And then, then I had Gabrielle, my gorgeous daughter, my first child, and then we were able to be posted overseas to all this. So I moved country every 2 years, and then life sort of rolls on, and then the years go on, and we're in the most. I use a lot of this background now of these places in some of my novels, but you wake up one morning. I had nothing in the world to complain about. I had servants. I was living in a large house. I had a lovely husband. But, I just woke up one morning and went, what happened to the little girl who wanted to write books one day? And it was there just became this kind of separation. So Peter said, go to London, go see your friends in London, because I had a very dear friend from Monavale, Nick Tate, who was an actor. We were childhood friends and still are. And he was he was acting and living in a big house full of Australian writers and film people and all kinds of people. And there I met Tom Keneally. And Tom, he was sleeping on the sofa. Everyone was bunked in everywhere. And Tom walked me around London, and he said, you're at that point that if you don't do it, you never will, and you will never forgive yourself. You have to do it. So basically, I walked out of my marriage, and the children, we decided, poor Peter was just so confused and upset and couldn't understand. But he just thought I'd get over it. And so I came back. The children were posted. They were in Jakarta. So, and they were in the American school. They had ponies and servants, and I would come back, and if I had the children with me, I had no money. And, I mean, Peter would have supported them, but they would have been latchkey kids. And so it was sort of like being at, I suppose they were at a very glamorous, boarding school with a wonderful father, servants and all. And then I went up and down, and then they'd come for the 3 months and 4 months for the holidays when I was staying in this little cottage, very simple little cottage at Palm Beach. And then it was, okay, now I have to do it. So my mum was living in Avalon, and I thought, I can't afford to live. What will I do? And then friends said, oh, there's this place called Byron Bay. It's just this old hippie hangout, surfers, nothing's up there. This is the early 80s. So I drove with the dog and everything I owned up to Byron Bay, and I lived in a shack there for 9 years and wrote 9 novels.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember when you first started that what was the name of the first novel that you
Heart
wrote?
of the Dreaming, and that was the one where R.M. Williams had taken me to Longreach and shown me so I wrote that. Okay. Yeah.
When you started, do you remember the moment that you put pen to paper or typewriter or?
Yeah, typewriter, I think. Or very bulky computer box thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I had the computers. But what I did was I started it because I was more comfortable with film and television. I thought I'll write it as a TV outline for a TV series or show, and then they'll make that and everybody will love it, and then a publisher will say, oh, Di, why don't you turn it into a novel? Which, of course, none of which happened. But you have to trust that sometimes life just takes, if you really believe me, if this hadn't happened, I would have made something else happen. But a friend that had a bookshop suddenly became Colleen McCulloch's literary agent, and I had given her the outline to read just as a friend, and without telling me, Colleen said, you can be a literary agent, look after me. So she's a literary agent. So Anthony took my outline into Pan Macmillan, and they, said, okay, she's been on television. A few people might know, let's give her a bash. She's been a journalist and it's a good idea. And we need to start telling Australian stories because it was set in Australia and there hadn't been a big book since Thornbird. So the timing, again, is everything in life. So the timing was right. People were ready to hear our stories. So it was a huge success, but it did... I didn't suffer. I mean, I enjoy writing. It's what I love. I'm doing. To have a job that you do that you love is the gift of all gifts, really, because you're there. Yes. And I'm working from home, and I'm at my desk. I keep office hours. I work nearly every day, and if I have other things to do, I do. But then I make it up. So I'm very disciplined. Journalism. I'm disciplined. I know what I'm doing. I think I work it through. Everyone's got a different system, but I think, again, that film and television thing, I see and hear everything. I sort of have these people that come into my head and I just follow them and off we go. But so now every book has been set in a specific place which sort of chooses me. So I go there, I research, I wander around, sit in the pub and talk to people. People will tell you anything. It's quite extraordinary.
You do, yes.
And particularly in Australia, I think, that's something quite wonderful about this country, isn't it? People do love to
It's
deeply...
great. So, you change a bit here and there or it triggers other things. And so that's how I can then get the sort of the background, and then my imagination takes over after that. But equally, having been a journalist, my books are very timely. It's like the publisher keeps going, how did you know? Because you hear, so some of the subject matter and the places and the themes are always very timely.
Wow.
Yeah, you got your finger on the pulse and know,
I was
Great.
just thinking of that wonderful quote about luck, because I would imagine a lot of people would say, "Oh, Di, you're so lucky," and I find that word such a.
Well, it does. It does, though.
But I was going to say the quote is that luck is when, I think this is a wonderful quote, luck is when opportunity greets hard effort. So, yes, the opportunities have to arrive,
this is
and you have to say yes.
true.
You have to say yes, and you constantly have said yes. You've gone to London, you've said yes. You've said, yes, I'm going to take up my career as an author. I'm going to sacrifice quite a lot to do that because that's my calling, and you say yes. So I love that, but there was a lot of hard effort there. You've worked,
A lot of grit.
a lot of grit, a lot of
sacrifices, and equally, I had a bit of a hard time in the beginning because from media, she's pushing 40. She's no longer on television, so she started choice down the bottom of the ladder. So now she's writing books, which maybe might have happened with some people, but certainly not. I was achieving my dream. I loathed.
Kind of turned out pretty well.
Yeah. Because television by then, the first years of Good Morning Australia were absolutely wonderful. But then we all kind of moved on and other people came. And then there was this string of unbelievably chauvinistic men, which at that point, you didn't call it out, hardly recognise it for what it was. I just would be in tears. We had one particular executive producer who was just awful. I'd cry all the way into Ride at Channel 10 in the back of a car. And he was awful. And he was a very short, he's no longer with us, so I can probably say that without saying his name. But he was short, so he had a desk. And then he had a chair that was really low so that he would perch on the end of his desk and you were down in the low chair so he could look down on you. And he was just, and it was just awful. So it was again, I was sort of winding down going, oh, why am I doing this? And, and then, whatever happened to my dream, I've got to write. And I thought, because I was doing breakfast television, so I'm up at 3 a.m, and I was getting home because I was filming stories at 5 and 6 at night. So there was no life, no time. I was living alone in my shack in Byron Bay. So on it went. And then suddenly I just walked out and went to do what I really wanted to do.
Wow.
So you just have to jump off the cliff sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. And I think that for the listeners that are out there that might have a dream, have a passion, don't know where they could ever fit it in, they're in the woes of it's too hard basket, that what it took for you to actually, and you've had some naysayers, and had to face a lot of those things. I really appreciate you sharing that because that is the thing of being able to keep
and
going
persevering, because as I was going to say that the media, when my book came out, was, there was just all of this, she's just been on television and now she's too old to be on TV, so she's, going to write a book. Little knowing, that I was achieving my dream. So you just can't listen to all of that stuff. You just, the cliche of following your heart is when you love what you're doing, you're fulfilled and you're doing good things.
Your Dharma. You found your Dharma and you really chased it. And look at that, 30 books. This next book, I can't wait to hear about this in our next part. We've got a song coming up, haven't we?
Yes. So this is, someone wrote this song, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this one.
The current new book is called River Song, and I live in the Manning Valley now, where I was born originally. So and I overlook the magnificent river, and I was with a girlfriend. We went into the wonderful, art gallery in Taree for a concert, and there was this beautiful young woman there who just sat at the piano, and she had a percussion and a man on the guitar, and she sat and sang, and of all songs that she'd written herself. and they were just beautiful. And I was sitting there and looking out, there's the river, and I'm thinking, because a lot of the story revolves around the river. So afterwards there were, cheese and nibbles and biscuits and stuff. So I went up to her and said, she sings under Gold Heist, but her name is Hester Fraser.
Hester Fraser?
Yes.
There's a plug. Great, thank you.
Yeah, and she's actually Malcolm's granddaughter, but that's beside the point. Anyway, Hester, and I said, I've just written this book and it's set around a river. I've just finished it and it's about, music. It's got a lot of music in it. And I said, would you write a song? And she said, oh, I'd love to.
Oh.
So she went away. And we talked a little bit about the passions and the feelings, and she went away and wrote this beautiful song called "To the River." And there's she went and recorded a little video of sitting by the river singing "To the River."
We are here with the wonderful, iconic Di Morrissey, and we've been having an absolute blast listening in to these incredible stories. These are iconic stories. We don't have stories like this anymore. Oh, I love it. Love it. This is wonderful. So we just wanted to dive in now, if we may, about your book number 30, River
Wow.
Song, and I love that music that goes with it. And
There's a QR code in the back, and so you can listen to it.
Yeah, the book.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now when was the book launched, Di?
Last Friday.
Oh, last Friday. Oh, it's really recent.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we're right on hot on the press, so to speak.
Yeah, October 11th.
Tell me, how long did it take you to write River Song?
Well, I have a deadline, so that if to bring out a book every year, it generally comes out like September, October for that Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have it finished. It used to be June, but now it's kind of creeping up a bit, sort of late April.
But you're
March,
pretty
March,
disciplined.
April,
Disciplined?
May. Yeah. So, but I have a wonderful editor, a lovely lady that's been an old friend who's done lots of things, and so she was had a bookshop in Lismore. She was a teacher. She's done all kinds of things, and she's a woman my own age, sort of, or whatever. And so I used to write, because I was in Byron, she was in Lismore. I used to post her every chapter before the email happened, and then I write a chapter at a time, and then I post it, I email it to her in Brisbane, but we tend to talk nearly every day, and so we keep talking through the editing process, which means, no, that's a silly idea. No, it's not. No, you wouldn't do that. It's all of all of this women shouting stuff with great friendship, and so we can be really honest with each other, which is what you need. So Liz and I get when the book is finished, then every couple of chapters we send to my editor in Pan Macmillan, and then that goes to the copy editor when it's all done, and so I have that time. Then the proofs come back to me to copy, proof and stuff from the copy editor. So it's a kind of a sausage machine, because we have to fit in with all of the other wonderful books that Pan Macmillan publish. So you're sort of in the slot, and you can't hold up the production line.
No. And so your process when you write, because you're very structured around, you try your very best to stick to your timelines. Are you a morning writer, or is there a certain time of day, or a ritual?
I start early because of I get up early because of all those years in breakfast television, and I have never been accused of being structured.
I'm giving you a word that's not you.
But I am disciplined. But I am not organised, and that I have no idea where the story's going, because I can't plan. No. I mean, a lot of people have a storyline and a plan, and then they know what they're doing, and they do a draft, and then they do another.
So you don't have post-it notes everywhere?
Nothing.
Or is it all in your head?
It's all in my head. But
wow.
I mean, I sit at the computer. I suppose you kind of mentally, you go into yourself and you sit there. Somerset Maugham said, just write your name. If you can't write it, just put something down. So you
That's
just
a great tip.
Yeah, just keep. So you kind of stumble along, and then these people will start. I see it like a movie in my head, and I sort of hear. And so I just keep writing, but then every time I read it through, I make a change, and then then Liz and I read it aloud to each other over the phone, and then when you read it aloud, you see and hear things you missed when just reading them.
Love it.
Printing it out, you see things that you don't see because you're on the computer. So
All those budding writers out there are going to love that.
And put it away, write it, something, and then put it away and keep going forward. Because 3 weeks later, if you go back and read that, you'll just see all kinds of stuff. Oh, God, what did I say that for? And, you rejig things. So that's my process.
Okay.
But
Do you listen to music?
No.
Do you need dead silence?
No, because I worked in a newsroom in the newspaper, so you're used to writing with just the world falling around your ears and you pay no attention.
So have you got on YouTube a news
dog,
station?
There's cows and there's tractors and there's the dog and whatever.
So we don't need to zen out and have zero.
No,
Love it.
Cups of tea are a necessity.
Cups of tea?
Yeah.
Peppermint
run on
tea? What tea do you like?
No, I have Assam tea, Sri Lankan Assam tea. Yes, it's
Is
beautiful.
it a spice?
No,
tea?
it's black tea, just
Black
very
tea?
dark, black, strong tea, but it's just got a lovely little flavour to it. And River Song is really set around the little country town where I am, with the looking at the river, and it's 4 women, all completely different ages, backgrounds, social standing. They're all very different. And I thought, well, how can I bring them together to, with these different backgrounds? So I thought, the local theatre. So they all meet when they're in a musical production at the local theatre. And then they all get on really well. And one, morning tea break or something, they go and buy a lottery ticket. And they win mega millions. Massive amount of money. And then what happens to their lives?
This is a book I'm going to read. I can't wait to read it.
And it came about, I'm standing in the newsagents, and this woman in front of me is fluffing around buying her, lottery ticket, lotto, whatever she's doing. And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, excuse me, what would you do if you won all that money? And she was horror-struck. Her eyes opened and she looked at me and she said, oh, my God, I've never thought of that. And then she went, I wouldn't tell my kids. So I thought, so that was kind
And
of...
that was the inception.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you to the lady that was at the
the newsagent.
The newsagent buying the lottery ticket.
Yeah, but then I also had the story of the musical that they're in became a sort of as a secondary story, which I'm now. I started to think, what, this is not a silly idea.
Actually starting as you
So
will.
now I'm thinking, I'll just maybe start and produce a musical.
Why not die?
love it.
Anything you
Next
put your mind
project.
to, really. Yeah, that's gold. So those ladies, do they know that you selected are they fictional? or
they're all fictional.
Okay,
Yeah,
they're not ladies you selected in the town.
No.
Wow.
But no, I think I can see a playwright now happening in a new show in your local town.
We'll audition.
Yeah, why not?
Thank you so much, Di. This has just been absolutely delightful. Delightful. There you go.
It's just been so lovely
has
to
been
to be back in the Northern Beaches and home territory. It's very special. Look after it.
Oh, we're very blessed to have you here and gracing our Radio Northern Beaches studio. So we have the book out now, River Song, book number 30 by Di Morrissey. Di, very quickly before we go, we have a question that we ask everybody, and it is, what are your 3 truths?
Respect our heritage, which is Indigenous people, the first people, all of us that are here. Respect the people, the land, the animals. That would be, and basically the planet. We are on the road to extinction. It is terrible what is happening. So that would be, for me, a very good place to start.
Di, thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Amazing.
You're both wonderful.
And I
had a
just
wonderful time.
love your pioneering spirit, Australian woman with such great stories and saying yes so many times in life that's led to so much. And I think it's inspiration for others. And we've got to really go back to our pioneering spirit in this country, because that's what
Think
what
of
we've got.
those women who were left in the shack with the rifle and the kids while the men were gone for months on end. We forget the celebrities and the people that trendsetters and everything. Embrace your female strength, integrity, and heart.
And what a great note to end on.
Love it.
From grit, from those women of absolute bona fide grit to absolute grace. And that's the grace that we get to experience
Absolutely.
now. So thank you again, Di. Been an absolute delight and a thrill.
It's been a joy to be with such beautiful women,
Oh,
inside
lovely.
and out.
Thank
you're
you. I got
truly
chills.
delightful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mon.
Yeah, and are we going to close with any further song?
No time.
Okay.
From little things, big things grow.
Thanks for joining Mon and Mazz on Grit Diaries, where we have heard stories from grit to grace. We so enjoyed sharing some time with you today, and we hope that from the stories and ideas that we shared today, you will go out and make big things grow.
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. And most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rmb.org.au.